I think I'm live. Look at that. Uh, Start recording. Cool. So, Dan here. Max SPL videos. I'm still waking up. It's afternoon here, but hasn't stopped me yet. I want to look at some DJ setups today because I've had some back and forths with a few people online, which is always a mistake. uh, in particular, to do with audio mistakes happening. I'm hoping, I've got my fingers crossed, there's a podcast, the YouTuber that I've been following that I asked them if I could be a guest on it, and the feedback was yeah, and we've just been trying to figure out scheduling. So hopefully, if you like this topic, I'll be talking about it with them as well in terms of common audio mistakes. I also have a video recorded on this guy about audio mistakes the DJs tend to make. Now, I don't have explicit permission from anyone that I'm using their photos today, but they were all on public Facebook groups and things like that. So if anybody sees this and is like, hey, that's mine, I don't want you to talk about, well, I'll pull it down. But until then, I'm assuming, I actually don't know what right to privacy you have when you throw a photo up on the internet, especially when it doesn't include you in it. So I've removed all the faces and stuff for everybody, including this one here, because I wanted to talk about my setups and thoughts I have on them first, so it doesn't seem like I'm just being mean to a bunch of other people, as well as I have a few in this list that I actually really like. Unfortunately, I couldn't do, for some reason, OBS wasn't doing a window capture for this photo page, so I'm doing screen capture, so that's why it has my taskbar underneath, if anybody cares. But this is one of my setups here. Cable management could be a little bit better and whatnot. We were up on a stage. This carpet does a lot for hiding it, but I should have been taping some stuff down a bit safer and whatnot. Now these lights here, they look a little awkward on my totems. Mostly just due to their size, but I'm very happy with them. These are 60 watt output with a prism, so I can do a three-way split on the beams out of them, or I can do individual on the fly. I've seen some that hilariously they have a prism glued into the front lens. Avoid those. But yeah, these were just AliExpress specials. Running wireless DMX to them, and then I cable out of them down the columns into there just to save on some wiring, though at this distance it's not too big of a deal. It's just the format I have in case I need to do it. Now you'll notice I only have one subwoofer. Ideally it would actually be a little closer to the wall, but this was a bit of an awkward positioning. But it was putting out a lot of bass. I'm very happy with this subwoofer. I did a review on that one. That's the Yorkville 212 that I've got. Not as happy as I thought I would be about having these pars on the floor like this. I put them there because they would, at this height, they are under eye level, which was nice, but was still washing the dance floor nicely. If I brought them up and hooked them up on the stands, probably could have gotten a bit of a better angle, but I was being lazy. And yeah, so that's one of mine. Like I said, I've got some critiques for myself. These are the Wharfdale Typhons that I reviewed recently. They're my new go-to DJ speaker. I just really like the way they sound for music playback. For live sound, I still prefer my QSCs. I think they are flatter, and that's what I like for live sound. Is I like a really flat speaker so that I can control things. But when I'm DJing, I can't be out in front of the crowd the whole time. So I like speakers that I know are just always going to sound good. Like these, the DSP on these, I'm actually very happy with. Now this is another one of mine. I have a video coming out Wednesday. I talk a bit about this booth here. I've since fixed it a bit. You can see it's just so awkward there in terms of this lip sticking out. Because some of the bolts and stuff are loose. But I got this thing for like $40. It fits really nicely. It has a cable management hole there. I could have done a little bit of a better job on my cable management here, but this was a Christmas party I did. It was just for, room full of like 40 people kind of thing. They didn't give me a whole lot of space. So you can see I've got all my stuff hidden for the most part behind me in terms of bags and whatnot. But yeah, 2 speakers. They are tilted out slightly just to fill the room a bit better. This was a little bit annoying. I couldn't quite figure out where to put my bar. So life goes on. So I put it kind of beside me. One of the mistakes I've been commonly seeing, this isn't an audio thing, but putting like their gig bar directly in front of themselves and stuff. I think a lot of critiques of DJ setups are pretty petty and involve just purely aesthetics. Sometimes it's right to criticize some aesthetic choices, and having your lighting directly in front of the DJ, not recommended. I don't think that looks good. So I've got mine off to the side. Ideally, I usually put it behind me. Sometimes it'll end up beside one of the speakers if I have more space and I really want it closer to the dance floor. But this, I have one of them aimed back to the corner behind me, and then you can see a few of these are aimed actually at the wall. I think the one behind the speaker here is aimed up at the ceiling. I didn't really have much of a dance floor, and this was set up at the time for during dinner. So I aimed everything to not blind anybody while they were eating. So that's why that's, really a little bit of a wonky configuration. But yeah, speaker on each side, problem solved. Now, let's get to other people's setups and why I'm actually making this. I came across this setup here. Now, there's a multitude of problems with this setup, and credit where credit's due. The guy who put this photo up on Facebook was actually really receptive to critical feedback, and I feel bad for him now because it has made its way onto bad DJ setups and stuff like that. So I think he's going to get a little more ridicule for this than he deserves. Now, I didn't comment at all about the lighting. There is some problems going here. I will say, in any DJ out there, any lighting tech out there, never use a truss like this if you're only using one piece like this. It's a whole lot of stand for not a whole lot of gain. This system, again, directly in front, though window boxing, so it's not as bad. This system would have looked a lot better, could have kept the exact same amount of lights if he brought both pieces of this truss, because usually these are designed to have 2 pieces. If he brought 2 pieces of that, spread these out a bit more, this would have looked fine. Yeah, the cabling's a little all over the place, but yeah, he was told, and again, receptive to like, yeah, fix that up. So ignoring the lights, aside from, like I said, the 2 big things, either slim this down to 1 T-bar or expand it out and put it behind you. Problem mostly solved, and yeah, fix it with cabling. I commented about the audio. I am on a one-man crusade to fix comb filtering. Now, if you're unfamiliar with comb filtering, essentially, if audio is coming out of 2 sources and they cross each other, right? Because usually when you have a speaker, it puts out like a 60-degree or a 90-degree dispersion. It your audio crosses over itself, and that's not a crossover, but like it'll intersect at different points out in the audience, and at those points you will have frequencies that are out of sync with each other. So you'll start to have partial frequency cancellations where you'll have big dips and stuff. Sometimes you'll have just complete nulls, things like that. Because if one wave is going up and one wave is going down, they cancel out. So I just replied to this thread because this is actually, as far as I can tell, a pretty killer audio system, right? I think those are JBLs. I can't quite tell what brand. Oh, Electro Voice. At least for the bottom ones. I don't know if these top ones are, but I think these tops are two like dual 15s with then an 18 underneath. That's kind of what I'm gathering here, which honestly for most DJ stuff is overkill, but can sound pretty sweet. And then they threw these on top. This is the problem. Because normally, now you will often see three-way systems. We don't use them as much anymore, where you would have like a bass cabinet, a middle cabinet, and a top cabinet. That tech is largely retired these days with the way line arrays kind of work. But what's happening is now we have two sources for all of our high frequencies and mid frequencies stacked on top of each other. So across the whole dance floor, you're going to have comb filtering because these sources are like almost exactly directly going to interfere. Especially because the horns on both of these should, depending on the model, sometimes they are a perfect up and down. Oftentimes they aim down a little bit. So you're going to get some weird out of phase stuff just across the board. On top of that, doubling your top speakers only on paper gives you 3 decibels. So that being said, the chances that these speakers are keeping up with each other, very, very, very slim, right? The idea that these speakers, like these top speakers, are actually adding 3 decibels is laughable. That's probably not happening. So it's degrading the sound he's getting out of these for no benefit whatsoever. So I popped on. I threw a, hey, just see, like, I wasn't that nice. It was, I think, just a pretty blatant, unless you're crossing this over in some way, as in turning this into a 3-way system, the top speakers are doing more harm than good. And then I linked an article from QSC that explains comb filtering. Great little article, right? If you look up comb filtering QSC, you'll find it. I may add it to the description of this if I keep this live up. But the first response I got was like, oh, there's always the guy who's obsessed with graphs. The article had 1 graph in it. It's just should be common knowledge at this point that, yeah, extra speakers does not mean better sound. In this case, it probably means worse sound, and it's not really adding any volume. So save your back, not having to bring these extra speakers along with you, right? And like I said, this guy, I feel bad for him now because he's been really receptive to the feedback that he did get. I have a suspicion in like a month we're going to see basically the same system because like this booth looks good. This sound system is killer other than those. So if he lops these off the top, big problem solved. Doesn't have to do this terrible strap the thing on anymore too, so that'll look better. It's going to sound better. And then, like I said, all he's got to do is either slim this down to 1 T-bar. It's honestly all you really need. Or double up on your trussing and put it behind you as a nice big long light show. And that could look real sweet. He has some decent lights in here. I'm a big fan of these moving heads. I don't like lasers, but to each their own. He has it nice and high. I don't like it it's aimed down, but you know, I'm not going to be the laser police. I don't know if this thing here is a laser as well. If so, careful. He does have a fog machine, so like the lasers will actually look good. But to be perfectly honest, I would just ditch these two and then hang. I don't mind these sticking out the side like that, but I would get rid of those. This is non-audio related, but just ways of making this look better. Also, it's a little like you want better symmetry than this, just for purely looks. But again, if he fixes that up a bit, like if he makes this look better, he can use all the same lights or even ditch some, and fixes up his audio. He's got a great system, but because of the nature of the internet, he's been getting a lot of unnecessary attention, including me. So I'm part of the problem. What am I to say? But overall, like I said, this guy was super receptive to feedback. So I think like his next version of the setup is going to be pretty sweet. But I wanted to point out this and just kind of that's what inspired me doing this video today. So now on that note as well, this is a common sight these days, right? Do I care about, again, the weird cramped light show thing they've got going? Which again, these lights are fine. They got some derby style things here. Having those down on milk crates by the look of it. If this is a backyard party, whatever, right? If this is a wedding, I'd say but whatever. Wash lighting, like this stuff's all too low, but they had to be under a tent. So like there's some ways to do this better. That's the first thing most people gravitate towards. It's like, oh my god, the lighting. Oh, it's so terrible. They got lights on the floor. No, that's fine. Whatever. I would clean up the cabling and stuff and make this look a little bit better. Ideally, if they could find a way to mount some of it into the tent, that could be kind of cool, rather than having the big stand, because you don't really need. Yeah, like this is a pretty overkill stand. Like they could get rid of these two arms. That I think those are on upside down. I think you're supposed to have those as braces underneath. It's been a while since I've used a stand like this. I used to have one, so I could be wrong. But I think that's installed backwards. And then, yeah, they've got a scrim on their table behind. So, like, from an aesthetic point of view, like the light show and stuff, yeah, it could be done better. I think they also did the same problem I was mentioning before where they put the lights directly in front of the DJ. But let's get into the sound here. Mismatched subs, I don't care too much. I know some people do. But I don't know if these little guys are really adding a whole lot when you got this big guy in the front, right? Here's what I'm seeing. Somebody bought these 3 speakers plus this subwoofer, don't know why, and then wanted to bring their old speakers. Now they could just be testing it out and A/Bing and seeing which one's better if they didn't have the light show. So I think this was an actual gig. This is going to sound horrendous. Now we've got comb filtering from 5 speakers, all probably, given these are probably like Lynx Pro or whatever, I can't tell. The Behringer subs, I mean, whatever, right? Behringer actually does make some okay speakers from my experience, but I know some people are going to say, oh my god, Behringer subwoofers. But we've got so much comb filtering going on here. We have these speakers directly next to each other. It looks like these plastic cabinet ones down here are probably about a foot in front. And then this is another half a foot in front of that. So now we're working on multiple planes, all heading in the same direction. It's just going to have so much phase cancellation. If whoever's setup this is sees this someday, know this. Your setup's fine. Just get rid of a bunch of stuff. 1 subwoofer and those 2 tops, this would be perfectly fine. But because they decided to bring these along with them and add this center fill, you don't need a center fill at this size. We'll get into center fills and their purpose. But yeah, not ideal. There's some wonkiness going on here. And yeah, backyard party, I still wouldn't put your lighting stand directly in front of you. I can kind of forgive it a little more here just because I have a suspicion they wanted it closer to the dance floor because under the tent they had to have it so low so they couldn't really cover as much. Blah 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 blah. Blah. Lots of reasons to maybe do it this way in this particular unfortunate layout with the tent. But the audio, yeah, like you're bringing an extra couple £100 of stuff too. Like that's the problem. The other thing is that like my back hates seeing these. It's just not good. And yeah, it's one of those things. This should be fine. Those are the setups that hurt me the most in these situations. Is they should be fine, but somebody has actively worked against themselves. Save your back. Get rid of these and these and this center fill. You don't need it, and this will sound and look better instantly. Win win win. And you don't have to carry as much stuff. So there's the third win. I don't even know if I need to talk about this one. This categories. Not only is this like horrendously unsafe, but all of those comb filter issues that we talked about for everything else. I don't see this subwoofer helping with anything here, given what they have underneath. Again, right? I'm not going to crap on somebody for using Behringer. Behringer is like Behringer mixers, ever since they bought Midas, have actually become like an industry standard, which is weird to say from years past dealing with Behringer equipment. I have some mics from them that I bought and said like, oh, when they break, I'll replace them, and they just never broke, so I still have them. I have better mics now, but I paid like $20 a mic for them. They're pretty good. I even have a set of I basically have these speakers at a friend's house. We used them weekly for band practices for years. And I had some friends who had the same ones that theirs did not last. Mine still 15 or so years later, still running. They're doing fine. But yes, this weird, unsafe, terrible. Like, again, yeah, you're increasing your sound sources. So in theory, on paper, you might get some extra volume, but I really doubt it. Chances are these are not as loud as the speaker in the center, and they're hurting the sound by a whole bunch of comb filtering issues. Don't know about the subwoofer, no idea. But yeah, don't do whatever the heck that is. Now this, I have actually less to say than I originally did when I put it on this list. I have a suspicion this is just somebody showing off their sound system. That being said, I think these are dual 15 with the horn cabinets. 18-inch sub, and then I don't know why then they have these. Just like that first one we looked at, these don't serve any role, especially if they are actually using it in this configuration. But I do have a suspicion this was just somebody showing off their stuff. So I put it out, or put it on my my photos here, but I have far less to say about it than I thought I would. Now, oh, I forgot to take this guy's face out. Sorry, bud. I've been pretty good about that. The good news is this is a done right thing. This is what I wanted to show. This is why I wanted to show this. So whoever this guy is, good job. Although I don't know if this is your setup. We've got our subs in the center, all close enough that they are coupling. Looks like they're all the same subwoofers. You'll see, for those of you who don't know about cardioid and whatnot, these are not set up in cardioid mode and all that. I don't think cardioid mode matters to DJs as much as it would to somebody who's doing like live sound, because keeping the bass off of the out of the microphones. But these here, as far as I can tell, and given the apparatus across the side, these are proper line arrays. Now, line array speakers are designed to actually work together and are sweet. I have a strong suspicion this is where a lot of DJs get some unfortunate ideas about more speakers is more good, is because you'll go to these big festivals and they'll have array systems like this set up where they'll have like 12 aside. In some cases, I've seen as many as, I think I saw one that was 24 once, but it was 24 very small ones. Now with these, that's where these center fills come in. This actually makes sense. I probably would have just had one in the middle, but this makes so much more sense because these are thrown all the way across the room. But if you were right here in front of the barricades, you're not hearing these, at least not all that well. So these center fills really help for the front of your crowd, and are probably nowhere near as loud as what these are putting out. So one of the things with comb filtering is the volume of the sound waves matters. So if one volume's up here and then the other's down here, and this one down here is causing some comb filtering, it won't affect the sound as much. It just doesn't. So this is killer. This is a properly set up sound system. Ooh, I love it. I love it. So, like I said, if sorry for not taking your face out, dude, but you either you've got the chance to play on a very, very good system, or you have a very good system. Either way, keep it up. Now, this should be just as good, but it's not. Because of this. I hate these. Not these speakers. These little things underneath the speakers here. These two-way top cab things. It gives people the wrong idea of how to use their speakers. Now, they have a purpose, right? So let's say this cabinet here, again, that QSC, even though these are EV speakers, the QSC article applies. If you're trying to fill a large space and you have multiple speakers, don't aim them straight like this. Take this guy and adjust its angle based on the horn on both of these guys. That's it, right? So if you've got these look to be 12s, they could be 15s. It's really hard to tell. But if you have these set up so that the horns have, say, a 60-degree waveguide, however you want to call it, and they're putting out their sound at like a 60-degree angle. Coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Kick these out at 60 degrees, and now you're covering 120 degrees with minimal comb filtering in between the two. It's still going to happen, but it's going to be heavily cut down, and you're going to have a better sound. If you're just putting these on for the volume, don't bring 4 speakers, bring 2 loud ones. That's it. That's how you solve this problem. Overall, awesome rig, right? Like these are 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 subwoofers in a stack. Man, that's fun. That's gonna be loud. That's gonna sound killer. They've got looks like sparklers across the front, which that's cool. Could be CO2, or no, in this configuration, like CO2, you'd want something different. So that's cool. Getting a little bit of pyrotechnics going on. I don't know if these are designed to go on their side like that. I could be wrong. Their unit might be fine for it. Oftentimes, ones like this are like a vertical, so I don't know why they have it on its side. But you know, they've got some killer moving heads going on. Some in front and then some behind. Like this whole setup is rad. Is just, this is dumb. And it's just, that's all it takes. That's all it takes to take something like this and basically ruin it. And like, this is going to degrade your sound in exchange for, in this case, 3 decibels. That's all it's doing. You're not getting more coverage. You're getting an extra foot of coverage by adding the second speaker because it's like a foot over, right? Like that's all it's doing. And you're hurting your sound quality in exchange for 3 dB, which turn it up a little bit or bring some more powerful speakers. That's all you need. This is bad. Now this one got some heat. I don't know why. Like I kind of do, right? Like I wouldn't aim my lasers down like that. This though, I actually really like this stand. I can't tell if this is a Hercules stand or if this is like Hercules usually is the ones that have the yellow cap there, but it might be a different brand. Cable like that, right? And that's just getting into the nitty gritty of like, now this is what I usually do on mine. You can see they took their cables, just wrapped them along the side of the handle and then down. And if you're lazy like me, that actually looks way better than just having them hang off the back. Using LD down here, I don't know if he's just LD up top. Like, this is great. This is set up well. He's got a nice small little light show thing here that's you can even see his zip ties and stuff. Like this is well cable managed. It probably pulls right out of the bag, throw it on the top, and then just crank it up. I can respect that. That's great. But people were giving this thing some crap because he's only got, quote unquote, only has 1 speaker. I guarantee you this thing sounds probably as good as this sounds better than any of those massive setups we've seen. And he's running in mono. I always run in mono. Because you don't want somebody who's over there on the left not hearing what's over here on the right. So depending on I have no idea what country this is from. But depending on the venue size, this might be perfect, right? 1 top speaker, 1 subwoofer. Awesome. But we're just so used to seeing 2 speakers per setup or more, as we've been seeing, right? And 2 is overkill for a lot of things, right? Like that one that I brought 2 speakers to and ended up getting kind of crammed in the corner. I probably should have just brought 1, set it up at a nice angle, and then had my lighting on the other side. That's what I should have done if I had known the layout. But I already had the speaker there and just threw it up. Because again, aesthetically, it's nice to have that symmetry. But yeah, I just don't understand why some DJs don't like setups like this. Cable management is really good. This system is going to sound killer. It's probably going to fill the room up really, really well. Yeah, like it's all tidy, but it's just controversial, quote unquote, because it's not symmetrical, I guess. I don't know. Symmetry is cool, but unnecessary in some respects. But yeah, whoever this guy is, good job. Don't aim your lasers at your patrons, though. Other than that, I really like what I'm seeing here. Oh yeah, he's got his little vertical fog machine. Again, using lasers with a fog machine, pretty clutch. If you're not using lasers, if you're not using fog, don't even bother with lasers. They just look like dots. But with fog, that's actually pretty sweet. I just wouldn't aim it down. I would aim it up at the ceiling, and just occasional crowd scan isn't, I think, depending on the country, it can be completely legal. But yeah, and there's been an onslaught of people these days who are starting to figure out that you can actually destroy a cell phone camera if you aim a laser at it at just the wrong angle. So be careful. Now this, I love, right? I threw in a couple today that I think are really, really good. Just with some minor problems. Very minor. DJs are obsessed with symmetry, which is fine. So that's why this lighting rig looks so cool. is it just has this really nice framing, like visually. I know some people were commenting on its cabling and blah 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 because again he's doing exactly what I do. If my system looked this good, I would go the extra mile on my cable management. Although I think his cable management is fine, I can see why some would say, no, go like tape these down that are behind, tape these so that they're not sticking out like that. I'm fine with it, but I get it. If you're gonna do a system that looks this good, go the extra mile. However, the other thing DJs are obsessed with is spreading their sound out because it will sound better. Now, you will get less comb filtering having your speakers further apart. So there's that. But when you space your subwoofers out like this, you are getting some issues. By having them spaced this far apart, you're probably creating something they call power alleys. Because unlike the comb filtering effects we get from the speakers up top, subwoofers respond really weirdly, where they kind of cloverleaf, or I always say it looks like a pot leaf, and it just looks like a hand spread across the dance floor where you've got these big gaps where it's actually quieter in those spots and then it's more volume in the others. And you can have as much as like a 10 dB drop, which is half volume. So you'll have, if somebody is standing next to somebody, the bass will be twice as loud at that distance. It's really weird and best to be avoided. So, like, if this was my system, I would actually, if I was using two subwoofers, I would have them directly next to the booth. Because I believe it's 7 feet. It's like 2.5 meters or something like that. I used to know these measurements offhand. But if your subwoofers are closer together, not only do you avoid that power alley problem, but they can couple and you end up with an extra 3 decibels of just free volume from them helping each other. Yeah, like subwoofers respond very differently to top speakers. Like you can have 20 subwoofers next to each other and you don't get the weird comb filtering issues. They enhance the sound. They work together, assuming they're generally it works best when they're the same subwoofer, and if you don't have any weird like different frequencies going to different ones or something like that. But the problem is that because DJs like spacing this stuff out, like I don't know honestly if I would care too much about the power alleys in a room like this, as long as I was close to the dance floor, because generally speaking, they become a bigger problem the further out you go. That's why we're really worried about these in live sound, large situations, because the gain, just like I was talking about with mono earlier, in this case, yeah, you don't want somebody who's hearing this speaker to be getting a different experience than somebody who's hearing this speaker. But at the back of the room, you also don't want entire groups of people to be having half of the bass as the people next to them, because that also then gets really hard to determine how loud you should have your subwoofers, because if half of the room is half the volume, do you base it on that and have some people where their ears are getting blown out, or do you base it on, well, some people are just going to have less bass, I guess. Now this is another one I like, sort of. There's a couple little problems going on here. I'm a fan of this, like we were talking about before. Light fixture behind the DJ. Not a fan of the dots behind the facade. I would have done wash lighting there, but that's a preference thing. They've got their little fog machine here, which I don't know if I would bother with the wash lighting like this. I actually do really like that wash light. It might have strobes across the bar, similar to a gig bar. I don't know what this light is, but I really like it. Oh. Anyway, we got 2 speakers and a subwoofer. Perfect. Now, yeah, cable management, that kind of stuff. Gross. I don't like that. Even if you be lazy like me and just hook it around there, have it go straight down and then carry over. It just looks better and takes like 2 seconds. Like you don't need the cable clip stuff, in my opinion. But some people will disagree. Now here's the thing. Two problems I see here. And I don't know if this was done for the sake of this photo. These speakers spaced perfectly fine. Shouldn't be getting too much comb filtering, right? Again, people are just used to seeing two speakers. This one is aimed the same direction as this one, meaning now we've got one here and here. We've created an extra plane versus having them both aimed out on the same plane. We have one that's further back. So now we're going to get weird phase cancellations between the two speakers. The reason I'm saying it might just be for this photo is like if the dance floor is here, they probably had this speaker facing out towards there, but might have aimed them towards the camera because it looks like this is after the party's done. So yeah, it's probably fine, but again, careful. You don't want two speakers on two separate planes. You want them on the same plane like that in terms of left to right. And then yeah, just aim this one out towards the crowd. Now subwoofer wise, I'm always a fan of a single subwoofer. I don't like doing the subwoofer on each side for that power alley thing I was talking about. But something I've learned recently, because I used to disagree with this in practice. I was putting my subwoofer straight at the front, which in this system could work and be just fine. So like there'd be nothing wrong with putting your subwoofer up front here. A lot of DJs don't like to do that because then people end up putting drinks on their subwoofer. Ruins the finish on the top. I've got a speaker that has very, very clear rings on it because I was doing sound for an event and the talent kept putting their drink on my speaker instead of on a table. I don't know why. It almost fell off because that's the other thing is that this thing is shaking a lot, including whatever's on top. So slowly but surely, hopefully, and then it spills onto the floor just to, show people, assert dominance. So yeah, in front like that would be probably best. Now that does mean now your subwoofer is on a different plane, but if you got it crossed over properly, that shouldn't be a big deal. It's not ideal, but it's not a big deal. Crossover, if you're unfamiliar, you set a frequency that one speaker is getting all of the lows up to a certain point, the other speaker is getting all the highs up to a certain point, and they cross over. So there is a bit of overlap. You don't want it to be perfectly, but it just generally helps make sure the sub's getting the bass and then these aren't getting that. If you're going to be on separate planes, you really need to worry about that. I have heard, particularly from DJs, that, I set all my stuff to full range in terms of my tops and then reinforce the bass with the subs. So, like, this is putting out everything down to 60. This is putting out everything from 100 and down. So they do overlap by, like, that everything from that 100 hertz to 60 hertz kind of range. I wouldn't, but if they're on the same plane, shouldn't be too big of a deal. But the other thing you can do is put your subwoofer against the wall. Counterintuitive, but what happens when you have the subwoofer this close to the wall, but not directly against the wall, is those bass frequencies, they hit the wall, they echo back into the room, right? They reflect back, and now they're not in phase, and you get those weird cancellations and boosts that we were talking about before, but off of just the single subwoofer. We call them room modes. They're really annoying. There's no way to completely eliminate them, but you can get rid of a lot of those problems by having the subwoofer against the wall. So that's something I've been experimenting with mine. I always assumed having the subwoofer too close to the wall would give a really boomy sound. turns out, yeah, if you put it in the corner, you do excite some of those room modes, and you do get some frequencies boosted that I don't like the sound of a subwoofer in a corner. Your mileage may vary. Feel free to try it, right? Trust your ears to an extent, right? One of those group thread things I was on where everybody was, one guy was kind of crapping on that article. Somebody else was commenting, and I think they were trying to be sarcastic, where it was saying, like, how else are we supposed to know what our sound system sounds like if it wasn't for graphs? Kind of. I agree and I disagree. Yeah, out in the real world, if it sounds good, it sounds good. Even if on paper there's a more optimal way to do it, do it. But sometimes it can be really deceiving. Because if you don't have a graph that's showing you how the room even theoretically would respond, where you're standing, it might sound perfect. But then if you walk a few feet over, it might sound horrendous. So that's where graphs and the math and stuff really comes into play. Because on paper, it might sound better or worse to do a certain way. But if you're standing in a specific spot, it may sound better. That's one of the reasons why, like, oftentimes for subwoofer placement, for home use, what they'll actually do, and I've heard some people say that this is not the optimal way to do it now, blah, 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 but I thought this was actually a clever way to figure this out. So when you're dealing with subwoofer placement for a individual listener, what people will often do is they put the subwoofer in the chair where you're going to be sitting, and then they walk around the room and they find where it sounds best, and then they put the subwoofer there, with the assumption being if the subwoofer is in that spot where it sounded best, now it should roughly equate to it sounding. It doesn't work 100%, but it when it comes to dealing with modes and things like that, and hearing, like, in a individual space, like a living room, you should put your subwoofer wherever it is going to sound best on the sofa, not where it's going to sound best on paper. But when you're in a large space, when you're dealing with a few hundred listeners, that's where the graphs start to matter more and more and more. Anyway, another thing, take your stickers off, right? I know the exception to this is if you've bought these and you want to try them out for a gig or two and keep the stickers on to be able to return them. But they look tacky. It's not like, I always equate it to like the people with the ball cap that have a sticker slapped on it. You don't need that. This is another single subwoofer, and this guy was getting a bunch of flack for it. This system probably sounds great. Again, I would probably recommend, as much as I hate agreeing with the people who were saying, like, oh, get a second subwoofer so that you can make more symmetry on these, blah, blah, blah. I actually wouldn't. I would go the opposite route, and I would put, I'd put them both on stands and put your subwoofer against the wall. Problem solved. Right? Rather than using the subwoofer pole. Solves this problem very quickly. Now, cable management and all that stuff like this, I don't know what happened here, because they were really good about making sure these were down and then wrapped and then came back, and there's just one that just sticks off to the back. I don't know. Same thing here, right? Get these cables to there, but that's just stickler stuff. I'm not too worried about it. Another fog machine. Man, where are all these people playing that they're allowed to use fog machines? I'm jealous. And I do like this backlighting. Those are bright. Those look good. And I don't like that so much. But in this situation, it actually looks pretty good because it's centered behind the DJ. Yeah. But anyway, audio-wise, yeah, a lot of people were saying, get a second sub, get a second sub. Don't spend the money on the sub. Just get a second speaker stand. That's all it needs. But, yeah. Now, this guy, he put this up as like, check out my old setup. Don't be too harsh on me. So I'm not going to be. But I do want to point out, again, this cable stuff is comical. Especially because I think They managed to hide the cables pretty well under. I hate these speaker stand scrim stuff. I don't like these. Personal preference stuff though. But the mirror is showing off the cables that he hid. Um, yeah, and we got the classic bundle of orange extension cable, but I don't know if that's the venue or him. I can smell this venue. I've worked so many venues like this. Um, yeah, yeah. Now it's not a bad stage. Like this also strikes me as the kind of place that actually has some bands from time to time. Uh, Not just DJs and stuff. Gonna be getting some pretty bad power alley effects from these subs being spaced that far apart. But other than that, it's fine, right? This truss though, that's ridiculous. I don't know why this thing's hanging off like this. I can't tell if this is like an extension that he has sticking off of this or if this is attached to the wall behind him. But why would anybody use this truss for 4 pars like that? Don't do it. Just don't do it. That's just way too overkill. But anyway, back to the audio side of things. Like, yeah, this is fine. But I did find it funny. You have to be careful when it comes to mirrors like this. But yeah, audio wise, this thing is fine, other than the spacing of the subs. This was a good setup that I saw recently, and it does leave me with a few little questions and quirks isn't the right word, but they put a lot of effort in and a lot of money into these subwoofers. They're running them in cardioid, right? So that's how you have to do it. To run in cardioid, it doesn't look the best. That's why another reason why a lot of DJs tend to avoid it. But basically, because they are stacked on top of each other in that manner, and then I can't remember. There's like a phase. I can't remember if it's you reverse the phase of the top or bottom one. It's been so long since I've bothered doing anything cardioid. The good news. This is aiming the bass out here. Basically, the way cardioid mode works is you're canceling out the bass behind the subwoofers, so that it's not increasing necessarily the bass in front, but it's canceling out the bass behind, and is very useful again for bands. I personally think that's overkill for DJs. I would have taken those 2 subwoofers, either put them on, like do the classic DJ 1 sub on each side, and just tuck them in closer to the booth, because like he's got them directly next to here on these trusses. A little bit overkill, which is fine. I don't mind overkill. But I would have either the subs underneath those and tuck them in really close so that we get that 7 feet or so from excellent connection. And then all of a sudden I thought I had lost my stream there. Yeah, I wouldn't set these up this way, but at the same time, this is it done correctly. But I think it's overkill. Or put those subs against the wall at the back. Right? Now that said, now you're standing in front of your subwoofers, and that's gonna hurt a bit. Like that's a lot of bass. But would work actually really well. Sparklers, I actually really like this spacing here. Sparklers are always a pain in the butt in terms of cable management, because you have to power them. You can't fully wireless those things. But yeah, I'm actually a fan of how this guy is setting this up. Having those cables ran the way they do really cleans those up. A lot of people, they put the sparklers here and here, then you have to tape those cables down across the dance floor, and he's using very, very little of the dance floor space, so that's nice. But yeah, audio wise, I don't know. Personally, I think the cardioid thing, even though it's super useful for being a sound tech for like a band, I think it's really overkill for DJs. But at the same time, I wanted to have that in here because I was talking about cardioid earlier. Oh, that was the last. That was the last one of these. So, like I was saying, where's my? Wah. Just wanted to look over some setups and stuff. And mine's, nothing to write home about. I'm happy with my setup, but some of these are better than mine, even if they are set up incorrectly. And that's kind of what I really wanted to get into with some of this stuff. Like I said, leading all the way back to that first one, this should be good. This has all the parts of a good setup, but it's set up incorrectly. And that's, I think, hopefully the takeaway from this is that, I don't think at any point in any of this, other than this one was just terrible. But like this one here, less is more. Get rid of this garbage. Doesn't need to be here. Get rid of this center guy. Problem solved. This is just terrible. Get rid of it. This just doesn't need these two. That's fine. This is awesome. No notes. Get rid of these. Right? Awesome. No notes. Spacing is my only problem here. Right? In none of these am I telling, like, the only one I said anything about spending money, I think, was this one. Because having a separate speaker stand, right? This one, I probably shouldn't even add that one in here. Oh, this one didn't load for some reason. There was more. Hey, look at that. But yeah, in none of these am I telling anybody to go buy anything. The big takeaway from this should be use less stuff. Spend less money. Now, this system annoys me a little bit because it should be awesome, and I love a bunch of stuff I'm seeing. I think this is a custom booth-ish type thing. I don't know what's going on with these. I don't know if these are speakers or if these are mid-cabinet things or if these are just spacers to put the lights on. Either way, it looks good. Like, as long as this isn't just purely for show, cool. But this ruins it for me because why have these speakers comb filtering for the sake of a couple decibels? Ditch one of them, you're set. I also really like whatever's going on here. I like this trussing-ish idea where it's just, we're going to bolt this, I think, I don't know if this is purely custom or if they took a, like the top of a T-bar and just strapped it to the side of a booth. But either way, it looks great. This should be killer. But why have these extra speakers? I just don't know. Oh, there was more. Oh, now this is very interesting. Very interesting. Again, I'm jealous. Somebody's getting to use a fog machine. Oh, I have one. It's had fog juice in it for 3 or 4 years. I'm almost afraid to use that in a space. Who knows what's growing in it? Although it's largely alcohol, so it should be warding off most bacteria. But man, I think the guy was saying these are custom subs, which I believe. I think these are folded horn style. They've kind of gone, instead of going really tall, they've gone long, and those are just sweet. Full CDJ setup back here, which isn't really my thing, but I know that's like the holy grail of DJ rig stuff. Although I think those are Denon. Technically speaking, they are media players and not CDJs. And these are really interesting. I really like the look of these speakers. The problem is I have no idea what the stats are on them. So there might be like a whole lot of bass and a good amount of treble and then just missing everything in between. What I would recommend to this dude who has this system, because this thing is killer, I would do one of two things. Get yourself some of those flat bottom stands, because that'll look sweet. Or even simpler, put a flange on the outer subwoofers, space the subwoofers out slightly. Because again, as long as they are in an array with, I believe it is 7 feet. I think it like can expand. That's why you see like at festivals they can have just sub after sub after sub after sub, as long as they're all working together. But put a flange on the outer ones, space them out a bit, and then put these on the pole, or on a pole off of the subwoofers. That could look really good. Because everything else about this is so sleek and awesome, and then it's just a regular tripod. That would be my only. It's not even really a critique, because like it's so cool. I really like this. Now that one I do believe is the actual end of all the ones that I prepared for today. Yeah, I mostly just wanted to show some cool setups and stuff that I'd seen, as well as some that I don't think are all that cool. Sorry. Is that on my monitor or is that on my camera lens? I've got a dot in the middle of my. I have to see. Does that go away when I go? I think so. Anyway, I'll figure that out later. Thanks for tuning in. A few people popped in and out here and there. That's always cool to see. But I just felt like talking about some DJ setups and some common audio mistakes I've been seeing. Because I can. But anyway, I'm going to finish my coffee. I'm going to grab some food. That was fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, less is more. Don't spend more money. Don't need to. Other than, well, that last one. But that was a money setup anyway. That guy has money to burn. For the majority of you out there, less speakers. Just set it up better, and you'll have better sound. Don't go throwing money at the problem. Take money away.